this HSBC story has been just driving me nuts.
Me too.
It is just unbelievable.
Well, I mean, when you start getting people to question sort of the very, I mean, I guess the only positive is, as you just pointed out about Chuck Hagel, not enough people pay attention. Because frankly, if everybody paid attention and saw this, like, I think there'd be armed revolution tomorrow.
We have a major bank in this country which has been involved in all sorts of, I mean, this is not their first, they have basically been found guilty. Well, they haven't gone to trial, of course.
Well, they'll never be found guilty because they're too big to jail.
Right. The Justice Department, and they've admitted that they were involved in laundering hundreds of millions of dollars, at the very least, in Mexican drug cartel money.
And Al-Qaeda money.
They've been involved in laundering Al-Qaeda money. They've been involved in laundering money to Iran.
Russian mobsters. Really, you have to try hard to find an evil group that exists in this world they haven't laundered money for.
Now,
you have to look far and wide.
They settled with HSBC for $1.9 billion, which is basically like, the functional equivalent of, I've got a check and I don't have a bank account, so I'm going to a check cashing store and I'm gonna get my money, but I'm gonna have to pay a fee. This is basically it. They're charged a slightly, they have a little bit less of a profit margin on that money laundering that they did, and they walk away scot-free. And what I want to know is, okay, you literally have the Justice Department. You literally have the Justice Department saying, in deciding not to prosecute now, Lanny Brewer, who I think is another one of those guys who was brought over from Covington and some white shoe law firm in Washington, D.C., with Holder, saying the Justice Department considered the collateral consequences, including the possible effects on the worldwide financial system, if HSBC's ability to operate was ruined by criminal conviction. If you prosecute one of the largest banks in the world, you do risk that people will lose jobs. Other financial institutions and other parties will leave the bank, and there'll be some kind of event in the world economy, he asks. This is very targeted, very real, resolute. It's a fiction to say it's a slap on the wrist. Here's what I want to know. There were specific individuals who actually laundered this money. And if it wasn't policy of HSBC, like it would be, let's say, if you were a criminal syndicate, the mafia or something, then how about convicting these individuals? They are all told on day one, there's a whole set of ethics. They are told that you got to go through this training, that if you launder money for drug pins, or launder money, period, for anybody, knowingly, you're going to go to jail. Why don't we convict the individuals who are involved in this?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I shouldn't say I don't know. You just clearly said it. I mean, apparently there's a belief up top that things will come crashing down. Now, obviously, you have to decide whether you believe that at face value. I'm not sure I do. I think in the end, as usual, the elites, there are connections. There are relationships
and there's just a perception that these are not real laws. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. Like, there's no real violation here. The real violation is when the guy smokes a joint on the street and or has a dime bag or whatever it is.
You know how many people like we have serving for law, for behavior of choice? I mean, I can't even answer that question because I don't know. But too many people whose lives we're wasting, and productivity we're wasting, and money we're spending, and obviously that doesn't get to the point of the immorality and the disgustingness of actually doing it. But people that are sitting in prisons places because they unknowingly carried like a dime bag for their girlfriend or boyfriend in a package, or that did whatever, and they're sitting there with their lives being ruined. Not to mention people that knowingly sold a small amount of pot or smoked it, or let's get more serious than that, snorted some cocaine or sold it or whatever, and they're sitting there basically with their lives destroyed for not doing anything any worse, by the way, than Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and frankly most of our recent leaders of the last 20 years, and probably many before that never admitted it, did. and their lives are destroyed by this. And again, when we sit here and having these conversations, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, about the fiscal cliff / crossroads / curb, whatever you'd like to call it. This is actually one way that we waste enormous amounts of money in lost productivity and increased criminal activity and housing people and just bogging down our criminal justice system and healthcare costs from all the things of rape and things that go on in prison, and just go on and on and on and on. And it makes no sense on a moral level. It makes no sense on a political level. It makes no sense on an economic level unless you're lobbying for the private prison corporations or the pharmaceutical companies or others who benefit from this, because otherwise it is entirely, increasingly, and ridiculously stupid for everybody else. Sorry, this one works me up kind of like guns and other things too. I
wonder what crime could you commit if you do it with a bunch of people at the bank, right? Obviously, if you do this individually on your own time. But if you wanted to, say, like, get together with a bunch of buddies at a bank and murder someone, and you did it within the context of the bank, let's say you killed them by dropping a safe on their head, do you think that then you could be convicted? If the CEO of HSBC the president of that bank decided, like, we're going to kill somebody, we're going to drop a safe on their head in my office, would we just simply, you can't do that? You can't arrest them because somebody could lose their job, it's just absurd.
Well, that's what I mean. In fact, a smart gentleman such as yourself, Sam, who is funny on top of that, I think I could see you doing a viral video, acting out some of these scenarios, perhaps, because there are interesting questions as to what it is you could do at a bank that could get you arrested.
Folks, this is why Libertas LLC, so the marketing ideas just pour out of you.
See what I'm saying, folks? This is the kind of PR and marketing advice you get when you... Yep, I'm pimping myself out, boys and girls.
There you go. At Cliff Schechter, ladies and gentlemen. At Cliff Schechter. All right, well, let's go. I literally am apoplectic about
Sam, and it's angering. And I've sat here and I've mostly joked about it because it's so ridiculous. But talked about the ridiculousness of the fact that we lock up individuals, whatever. But again, it's so important again that if more, and it may be our only saving grace, ironically, in this situation, and a lot of people don't know that this is going on. Because if you sit there and you look at the laws of this country, it's impossible to believe that we're really, truly a democracy anymore. If you look at who gets away with what they get away with, if you look at, what happened in 2008 with the economy crashing because of some guys playing around with derivatives they didn't understand or didn't care to understand and betting against their own customers, and you look at this, and you look at torture by the Bush administration, and warrantless, eavesdropping and the whole rest of it, and all the just a long list of things that people get away with, and then you read the stuff that people get in trouble for. It's just
I had a conversation today with a friend of mine who is a sort of a Republican type of business type of perspective, and I get that people resent the fact that, Congress, they don't have to be subject to Obamacare. Yes, okay, whatever. And they get paid too much or they get a pension after they leave the House or whatever. Okay, so we're, $5 million annually, whatever the heck it is that we spend on this. But the idea that, it's a bank, so, they launder money. I'm sure it was a mistake and whatever. I mean, the just sort of the sense of outrage that can be ginned up against stuff that is sort of symbolic or, in some, but not over something. It just drives me crazy.
No, you just don't know where to go at a certain point because it's so against everything you were brought up to believe in and about what was, great you were taught about this country when you were in school. And it's just that whole notion of equality and fair play and laws of, that these are laws not of men, right, that apply equally to everybody. And these kinds of cases just so destroy that and so blow it out of it. It has a corrosive effect, I really do think, on our democracy. Because, again, when people like Chris Hayes in his book ask why we don't get better elites, this is why we don't get better elites.
Yeah.
Because these guys who didn't go to prison, I promise you, now with a clean slate, will find their way towards serving in government in about 10 or 20 years, if not less.
Right. Or frankly, look, the message is out there. If you, this is simply a calculation of numbers. In other words, if you can make more than you will lose on a potential fine, then this is a smart business move. It's no longer a question of
almost nothing, right?
Yeah,
I don't have the number in front of me, but compared to what they made,
you frog march
like
somebody out of there, it's going to change that calculation. So, aside from the sort of moral outrage, it actually does have impact on the functioning of these banks, whether it's money laundering, whether it's mortgage fraud, whether it's derivative fraud, whether it's, lying to Congress, whatever it is.
Well, look, the clearest example that I can come up with, I can think of off the top of my head, is all of those guys who we know engaged in crimes against our Constitution, to be honest, in the Iran-Contra scandal.
Right.
They all came back and served. A lot of them did. Elliot Abrams and the rest of them, they came back and they served under Bush.
Yeah,
because
Cheney.
they'd never been convicted. In the end, they either had their convictions overturned or they didn't do jail time, and therefore they were completely had a clean slate to come back.
Oh yes, and well, of course, we also see this with the you could talk about moral hazard from a legal standpoint and also from a bailout standpoint. We've gone over this ad nauseum.